And now, aviation weather around Alaska. Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your aviation weather outlook for the state of Alaska as we go into Monday and Tuesday early in the week ahead. Well, we've had an area of low pressure as of Sunday here in the Gulf. This low will continue to weaken and move onshore in the vicinity around Sitka as we go into early Tuesday. In the meantime, though, MVFR conditions are expected Monday morning across much of the southeast. And then further inland, generally VFR across south central and up and through areas of the middle Yukon Valley. We still have IFR conditions along sections of the Brooks Range, central Brooks Range, North Slope, Arctic coast, even some snow showers and mixed rain snow showers there. Out over the Bering Sea, we have IFR, especially from around St. Lawrence Island down through St. Paul and then back through the Aleutians and central portion of the Bering. Monday afternoon, low pressure sitting off here with IFR wrapped around it. And as we look at the interior along and north of the Alaska Range, a lot of VFR conditions anticipated. Still IFR conditions, lower ceilings due to lower cloud cover, some visibility reduction, and some rain snow showers in this region. Cooler temperatures only in the 30s along the Arctic coast and there through the western half of the North Slope. And then another system out here back toward the central Bering, broad band of IFR conditions from St. Matthew down through St. Paul and into the central Aleutians. There will be another low that lifts up out of the North Pacific up into the Gulf, taking shape there as we get into, especially during the day on Tuesday. The low that's out in through the central Bering will be heading southeastward and then swing up toward Bristol Bay by the time we get into Wednesday. So ahead of it, we do expect IFR conditions along the southwest coast, including areas of Bristol and Kuskokwim Bays, lower Yukon Delta, Nunavik Island. Still, IFR will persist along the Arctic coast and areas of IFR here out through central eastern portions of the Gulf. And then Tuesday afternoon, we're looking for generally VFR conditions across areas, especially interchannels of the southeast panhandle and then up through the eastern portion of the mainland. IFR will continue toward Utqiagvik, Dead Horse, and along the Arctic coast there. And then we expect IFR conditions up into areas of the southwest, including Bristol Bay, extending down toward the tip of the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Aniktuvik Pass on Monday will be MVFR to start becoming IFR. The conditions will be IFR certainly north and west of Aniktuvik Pass. It's the same case at Again Pass. A little further east, generally MVFR conditions are expected on Monday. Further south and west, west arm of the Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, VFR conditions. VFR should prevail at Rainy Pass. As we round up through Windy Pass, we could see MVFR conditions there in the morning give way to VFR. Isabel Pass, generally MVFR conditions are expected to hold in vicinity. And Mentasta Pass, we start out with VFR in the early part of the day, but by midday, expect MVFR conditions to be more prevalent. Tanita Pass, we drop through the Copper River Basin, maybe VFR there early on, becoming MVFR. And then Portage Pass will try to hold on to generally VFR conditions, but the east entrance, especially out toward the west side of Prince William Sound, we do anticipate MVFR conditions. And then finally, in the far northern panhandle at Chilkoot and White, MVFR conditions are anticipated throughout the day on Monday. Looking at the freezing levels at the surface, we do have areas that will be below freezing surrounding the Alaska Range, Wrangell, St. Elias Mountains, areas of northwest Canada, up here through the central western Brooks Range, and then off of the Arctic coast back into eastern Russia. Freezing levels aloft are coolest here over the west side of the state, south central vicinity of the Alaska Range, and then back up toward the Bering Strait and St. Lawrence. Highest freezing levels will be south of the Gulf, 8 and 10,000 feet in the North Pacific, and then south of the central Aleutians, we see freezing levels aloft rising 8, 10, even 12,000 feet as you get further south there into the North Pacific. Greatest threat for icing on Monday will be areas of the southeast interior, the mountains, Wrangell, St. Elias, Copper River Basin, down into along the northeastern Gulf Coast into Panhandle, but above 10,000 feet. Farther north, areas of the North Slope, Arctic coast, generally above 6,000 feet. And back toward the southwest, we have another low. It'll be moving into the central bearing, so above 8,000 feet in the vicinity of St. Paul and prior before Nunavik Island. Upper level jet stream winds are strongest. We have an anticyclonically curved jet core of 100 to 115 knots here in the southeast Bering, upwards to 125 knots just south of the Gulf from the northwest. And then at 9,000 feet or 700 millibars, we have a core of winds 50 to 70 knots just on the lower portion of the Gulf into the North Pacific, associated with the one low circulation. Then the other one back here behind me, we see a broad area of winds in the vicinity of the Aleutian chain, generally between 40 to 45 knots. And then at 3,000 feet, with the low that's up in through the central Gulf on Monday, there is winds 50 to 70 knots, strongest south of the low center. But we still have winds northwesterly to 40 knots there. Kamishak Bay, down across the entrance of Cook Inlet, back further west. The low circulation in the central Bering, we see a broad belt of winds anywhere from 35 knots there across the central eastern Aleutians, upwards to 40, 45 knots there in through the western Aleutians. And the greatest threat for turbulence on Monday will be some areas of the southwestern southern panhandle, surface to 6,000 feet, areas around Kodiak Island, Kamishak Bay into the entrance of Cook Inlet, and south of Kodiak Island, surface to 4,000 feet, in through some of the gaps here in the Alaska Peninsula, and then back out toward the central western Aleutians, surface to 4,000 feet. There could even be some moderate turbulence way out back there toward Shemya. And then in the far north, we could see some isolated moderate turbulence and a little stronger easterly flow along the Arctic coast, especially from around Wainwright up through Utqiagvik to Kaktovik.